been looking for this all my life.
So Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is out, and it is directed by James Mangold and starring Harrison Ford and Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Daredevil archaeologist Indiana Jones races against time to retrieve the legendary dial that can change the course of history. Accompanied by his goddaughter, he soon finds himself squaring off against Jürgen Voller, a former Nazi who works for NASA. I'm kinda new to the Indiana Jones movies. I watched them all for the first time about 3 years ago, and they're all really good, especially Last Crusade, which is my favorite Spielberg movie in general. I'm even kind of a fan of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I think it's perfectly fine despite its many faults. It's nowhere as good as the original trilogy, and I did not expect this movie to be as good as the OG trilogy. But it actually is really good. James Mangold still has a perfect record. One thing about Dial of Destiny that was surprisingly well done was the de-aging of Harrison Ford for certain scenes. I am usually against deepfakes, but let's be honest, nobody can play Indiana Jones except Harrison Ford. Another thing I like about the movie is how it handles the premise. This is a movie that really shouldn't work on paper but is executed perfectly. Going back to Harrison Ford, I am happy at how they handled Indiana in this point of his life. This movie acknowledges that Harrison Ford in Indiana is old and isn't ashamed of it. There's like only one moment in the movie that plays into stereotypes of old people, but for the most part, nobody mocks Indy for his age. And I like how James Mangold is able to direct Harrison in a very engaging way, despite his old age. The action set pieces are really well done, and I like how it's a blend of not only Spielberg's style of directing, but his own. He directed this movie amazingly, and I cannot wait for his Star Wars movie. The supporting characters are really good as well. Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Helena is really everything that as Mutt Williams should be. Mutt is honestly just there for the ride in most scenes in Crystal Skull, and they don't really do much to develop his character. Helena here reflects Indy's younger years, and by the end not only teaches Indy a lesson but also learns something from Indiana. Helena's son Teddy, played by Ethan Isidore, is perfectly fine, although I think it would be better if they got an actual Moroccan to play the Moroccan kid. I may be biased because I'm Moroccan, but he does a decent job. Mads Mikkelsen as Jürgen Voller is a really decent Indiana Jones villain. It may be just because the last Indiana Jones villain was a generic Soviet lady, who isn't bad, but isn't really well developed in that movie. I feel like they could have done more to develop her. But Jürgen's motivations here are pretty darn scary, not just for what they mean in the movie, but for what they mean in real life, as we see a rise of fascism in the world. One more thing. From what I've read, this is John Williams' final movie score. If that is the case, he went out swinging. There's never been a bad John Williams score, but even at 91 years old, he's still able to make a score this immaculate. Bravo, John. Bravo. This is a non-spoiler review because I think you should all go see this in theaters. It's not really doing well at the box office, and I want that to change. I don't want this movie to flop because it's honestly really good. Overall, I can say that this is in fact a good Indiana Jones movie. I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10 and place it as number 3 in my Indiana Jones ranking, right behind Temple of Doom and Last Crusade.